Hey, everybody. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about our STEM journals. I think I have given almost all of you some feedback on how you should use your STEM journals at some point in the past couple weeks. And I realize that a lot of us are new and you maybe have not been through one of our PLs on using the STEM journal. So I thought I'd take just a couple minutes to talk about the best practices for using the STEM journal and why we do it. You can use this video to inform yourself. You could even show it to students if you wanted to. First off, why do we use the STEM journal? Well, the big one is the STEM journal is probably the biggest thing that the state is going to look at when they visit us in a couple months. They're going to ask students to show them the STEM journal. They're going to want to see a bunch of different entries within that STEM journal, and they're going to want students to be able to describe how it's being used. So we need some uniformity and some understanding collectively on how this should look, because it's a huge component of our state certification in just a couple months. But don't worry, it's not overly complex, and we're going to talk about that. The other reason the STEM journal is important is because it is designed to mimic the work that scientific researchers do. Any kind of scientific research, whether you're an engineer, a biologist, a chemist, whatever you do, you have to capture each step of your investigation or your design process. You capture that in a journal. And they do that in order to be able to come back later. And if they want to try the process again, they look through their journal and decide, this is where I should change it. This is where I should deviate and try something different the next time. It's also used for other researchers. You should be able to take a research journal and hand it to another scientist, and they should be able to recreate your process. It also helps capture your thinking and helps you think of the next steps. An interesting thing we saw this summer is that when we went to CJB, a lot of the chemists at CJB had research journals everywhere they went. Everywhere they walked around, they had a research journal. They talked about what a big deal it was and how it was such a big part of the work that they do. This is Victoria. She's one of the chemists at CJB. You may have met her. She was telling us about it. She even let me take a picture of it. She told me I had to stand really far away so I couldn't read it. And I was like, wow, y'all are really secretive. And she's like, well, the research journal is actually a legal document. This is oftentimes used as evidence in court if somebody wants to go back and prove what they have done. It's that serious and it's that big a deal. It's really a core component of what researchers and scientists do. So that's why the state is real big on kids carrying these around. Also notice that they're not doing it on an iPad or their phone. They are using paper journals just like us. And that's pretty industry standard as well, especially if you're trying to write in gloves or you're wearing protective equipment or whatever. They said it's just best to have a paper journal. So that's why we do it. So now let's talk about how we should do it. I've shared this document a few times. Go away. But this is just our best practices for STEM journaling. We can use the STEM journal for our PBLs when students are working through all the steps of the design process. We can also use it anytime we're connecting one class to another. For example, in social studies, if you are discussing economics and looking at graphs and data and charts, you could say, I'm going to make a journal entry called Test and Analyze, because I'm going to give kids some raw numbers for countries and their economics, and I'm going to make them create graphs of that data. So you could use it anytime you're doing some sort of interdisciplinary connection. How do you use it? What type of prompts should you have in it? Well, typical journal entries could be things like drawings. Students could draw what they've observed. Say they go on an ELO. There was a young man last year. We went on an ELO to the airport. They were designing their bottle rockets. He used his STEM journal, and he was drawing the shapes of the different wings that the different airplanes had. That was a great one. Scientific illustrations, maybe a drawing of maybe a device or something they're building. So drawings, tables, charts, and graphs. If they're making observations and collecting data, or they're graphing out that data or creating charts of data they've collected and organizing it in some way, that's a great thing to go in there. Graphic organizers, ways to organize their thinking, T-charts, Venn diagrams, anything that can capture their thinking, that should go in there. And then notes and research. Now be careful when I say notes. I don't mean class notes. I mean notes of, say they're researching say they're researching solutions. Say they're researching what other ways people have solved a problem. That's the kind of thing. Be jotting down notes on what they found. So it's not your class notes. It's not definitions. It's not you're not going to be up there with a PowerPoint. They're going to be copying that PowerPoint down in their STEM journal. That will never happen. The STEM journal is a place for them to capture their own thinking. What is it not? It's not definitions directly copied from a board or a text. It should be more like how a concept ties to a real world or an interdisciplinary project. It's not glued in organizers or worksheets. It's student generated. Now, I've seen some of you have had the kids cut out and paste a copy of our design process in the front of the design journal. That's cool. I understand. I mean, I get that. That's fine. But it should not be just like, hey, I have a worksheet on multiplying and dividing fractions. I'm gonna put that in there. No, that's not what that's for. It's not just for one student in the group. Every student records in their STEM journal every time they work in it. It's supposed to go with them to every class. They will work in the STEM journal in every content area, not just math and science. Again, it's a place for them to capture their own thinking. Even if they're working in a group, every student will record their observations or their ideas in their STEM journal. If we do a project, like a PBL, the ones we're designing right now, it has to have, where's my poster? If we're doing a PBL, it needs to have every step of this design process in it. All right, at least once. So for our big projects, students need to work through each one of these at least one time. Where am I? And again, it's not one subject. It's for all of us. It's for all 4 content areas. I heard a teacher say today that they needed to get with their team to figure out, how are we going to set up the STEM journal, and how are we going to have kids write in it? Well, we do have a uniform way we do that we came up with a couple years ago, and it's very simple. It's right here. So you just write the day's date. You write the step of the design process you're working on, whichever one it happens to be, and then the prompt, and that's where they'll record their ideas. They can use the same sheet if they have room at the bottom to work on the next one. Very simple, but that's going to give us a common method for writing in the STEM journal between different subjects and different grades. And that's it. That's a very fast and quick overview of the STEM journal, why we do it and how we should be doing it. We will always have conversations about this, but I thought this would be a good reference. And I thought it was important to do right now because we're getting visited in just a couple months, and this is going to be a vital component of that visit. All right, guys, thanks for bearing with me. Y'all have a great day.